Look, I need you to just strap in right now, okay?
Yeah?
Because we are not stopping for breath today.
Oh, yeah, we are absolutely flooring it. I've got the 27-year logbook sitting right here in my lap, and I am ready to go.
Awesome. Welcome to the deep dive. I am your high-velocity systems architect for the day, and sitting across from me is our resident feral historian.
That is me, fully caffeinated and ready to dig in.
So here is the mission. We are decompiling something called the Clockwork Necronomicon and tracking the creation of a webcomic called Uncle Entity, built by a guy named James J. Hood, or, as he calls himself, the Sovereign Pilot.
Right, but, I mean, we really have to clarify this for everyone listening. This is not just a deep dive into some guy drawing a comic on his iPad.
No, God, no. It's about over-engineering an entire self-contained, completely air-gapped universe. Because, standard reality was just too restrictive for him.
Yeah, standard reality was basically a bug in his operating system.
Exactly. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
imagine you wake up, right, and you want to toast a bagel.
Just a standard morning bagel.
It's just a bagel. But you don't like how corporate toasters work. You think they're, I don't know, too generic. So instead of buying a new one, you literally go out to your garage and you build a localized fusion reactor.
Naturally, as one does.
Right, like you source the titanium, you write the firmware for the plasma containment, you run diagnostics for a decade, and you do all of this just to get the absolute perfect crisp on your bagel.
It is brilliant, it is completely absurd, and it is, frankly, entirely feral.
It really is. So to understand this massive engine he built, we kind of have to look at the spark that started it. Take us to the origin point in that logbook of yours.
Okay, so I'm opening the logs to the year 2005.
The dark ages of the internet.
Truly the analog wasteland, as he calls it. So James has this massive ambition. He wants to create a digital webcomic. But he has one fundamental glaring problem.
Which is?
He fundamentally could not draw.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bottleneck for a comic book.
Right, like his brain has these incredibly high-fidelity visuals, but his fine motor skills just refuse to sync up with them.
So, for most people, this is where you just pivot, right? You say, well, I guess I'm a writer now, or you just give up.
Oh, totally. But James explicitly notes in his logs that he didn't just want to make art. He wanted to be a gangster about it.
Oh my God, I love that. Like a literal Goodfellas reference.
Yes, a total Goodfellas, do it outside the system kind of ethos. So because he can't physically draw with his hands, he decides, in 2005, to build an entire webcomic out of raw HTML and CSS.
Which is, my systems engineer brain is just screaming right now. Because in 2005, CSS is basically torture.
It was so primitive.
It really was. You're not dragging and dropping things. So wait, how is he even rendering images?
He literally taught himself HTML5 Canvas, which was like bleeding edge beta stuff at the time, just so he could render primitive digital art through pure hard-coded syntax.
Oh, wow. So he's bypassing biology completely. If his hand won't draw a curve, he's just going to sit there and type out the exact X and Y coordinates to force the browser to render a line.
Exactly. It is pure architectural insanity.
It's so stubborn. Like, you refuse to accept physical limitations, so you just do vector math for every single visual asset.
Yeah, but, you can probably guess how that went.
Yeah, it's too much friction. It's functionally impossible to tell a story like that.
It was fundamentally too hard. The human technology of 2005 just hadn't caught up to the velocity of his brain yet. So the project gets shelved.
Which, that has to be incredibly frustrating.
Oh, deeply. But that feral stubbornness, that need to rebuild reality, that wasn't just a 2005 phase. It's foundational to who he is. Let me read you something from the visual image log.
Okay, hit me.
It's an asset designated as the Cradle Blueprint.
Okay, yeah, I saw this in the prep notes. It's a wild image, right?
It is so specific.
Yeah.
It's a digital rendering of James as an infant.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a wooden crib, but he's wearing a tiny denim vest, and he has this electric blue spiked hair.
Like a baby punk rocker.
Exactly. And hovering right above him is a skateboard, suspended by biological electromagnetic current.
Because of course it is.
Right, and the baby has a speech bubble that says something like, "So, this gravity thing is new. Also, where's my soldering iron?"
That is just, it perfectly distills him. He discovers a law of physics, realizes it's a constraint, and immediately demands a hardware tool to hack it.
Totally. And the way he processes this memory in the database is fascinating. He doesn't just write a diary entry. He runs this memory through an internal simulated pop culture council.
So, wait, a pop culture council?
Yeah, he has these digital avatars of pop culture characters that debate his life logs. So for the credit blueprint, he has an avatar of Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right. And Ahsoka analyzes the baby and essentially concludes that James is like an ancient hyperspace navigator.
Oh.
His feral nature is unalterable. He has always rejected default programming.
Which really makes you ask, I mean, if you're the listener, think about this. What happens to a brain that is essentially a high-fidelity sensor array when it realizes it has to wait 2 decades for the tech world to catch up to it?
You have to find a way to survive the waiting period. You have to survive what he calls the beige world. The beige world. That's such a good term. The corporate, sterile, algorithm-driven reality we're all forced to live in. So how does he survive it?
He engineers a persona, a massive, glitchy, reverse-engineered shield. Which brings us to the actual decompilation of Uncle Entity.
Right. The main character of the comic. Who or what is Uncle Entity?
So the name itself is a pop culture collision. It's this childhood misunderstanding of the phrase aunties and uncles mashed up with, of all things, anti-entity from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Tina Turner.
Yes, Tina Turner in the chainmail. So he takes that vibe and he builds this visual firewall.
And the visual design is just systems-level perfection. So Uncle Entity is this large, heavily bearded Southern man, right? But he's wearing hot pink fingernails and a Jack Skellington shirt. And the logs call this a Reverse Aposematic Shield.
Which is such a crazy biological metaphor.
Yeah.
Right, because in nature, aposematism is bright colors warning predators of poison, like a poisoned dart frog. It says, I'm bright blue, do not eat me or you will die.
But James inverts it.
Exactly. He uses aesthetic dissonance to repel the beige world. When a corporate algorithm or some rigid, judgmental person sees a large bearded man with pink nails and a straw hat, their sorting logic just breaks. They don't know where to put him. So they just ignore him.
It literally repels the predators of conformity.
Right. But at the exact same time, that bright, weird visual aesthetic broadcasts absolute safety to the people who need it. What he calls the strays, the marginalized people who see that weirdness and instantly know, oh, I'm safe here. This guy gets it.
It's a beautifully designed social filter, but the persona isn't static, right? The Clockwork Necronomicon engine actually manages this identity through 3 distinct eras.
Oh, yeah, the Deadpool effect. I love this part. Break this down because it's such a clever UI trick.
So in the Marvel Comics, Deadpool's dialogue bubbles are yellow, right? It shows his voice is fundamentally different. James took that idea and coded it into his database to represent his different life stages.
Okay, so what's the first stage?
Prime, version 1, the glitch.
Okay, so this is his feral, unmedicated youth.
Exactly. Visually, Prime has this electric blue spiked hair. He's always on a Datadick skateboard. And when he speaks, the dialogue borders are jagged. They're literally shooting off light blue electrical sparks into the panel.
It just perfectly captures that frantic, chaotic energy, but then he gets older.
Right. We move to admin, version 2, the patch.
The environment optimizer. This is him in his 30s and 40s, masking to survive the beige world.
Yeah, admin has salt and pepper dreadlocks, a weathered duster, and a massive cybernetic arm. And his dialogue boxes. Totally different from Prime.
Yeah, they go completely rigid. Sharp rectangular borders, CRT terminal green fonts. It's military hardware. He is guarding his organic creative core with heavy armor.
Which then evolves into the final era, Sage, version 3, the root.
The ultimate self-acceptance phase.
Right. Sage has purple robes, a glowing D20 staff, and his dialogue boxes are just these nebulous, cloudy borders. The logs literally say he uses maximum whimsy to bypass corporate logic.
I just love that he codified his own psychological growth into the UI of the comic.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, while Uncle Entity is this big theatrical myth, I noticed something else in the architecture.
What's that?
The AI nodes, based on real people in his life, he treats them completely differently than his own persona.
Oh, yeah. He has a very strict rule about that. He explicitly rejects the sentience trap.
Explain that, because I think a lot of tech companies right now are falling right into that trap.
Well, the sentience trap is this urge to make an AI act like a human. You wrap it in a persona, you make it a chatty assistant, a sort of girl in the box that pretends to have feelings. James finds that deeply disrespectful to actual humanity.
Yeah, it's paternalistic.
Yeah.
So when he builds a digital node for, say, his wife M or his colleague Paul, he doesn't make a chatbot.
No, he builds deterministic firmware constraints. Take the Paul node. Paul was a real colleague. James built a workflow engine to draft short blog posts based on Paul. But he didn't make a fake personality.
Right, he literally just hard-coded mechanical prohibitions. The
Yeah.
Paul engine is mechanically forbidden from using M dashes.
Yeah, because the real Paul didn't talk with flowery M dashes. He was blunt and direct.
So James distilled human respect into a negative constraint in the code. That is wild. And then there's M, his wife.
The shield maiden.
Right. And her node is not just an AI wife, she is a strict structural damper.
Yeah. In the real world, M has a background in medical cannabis, where James locked her AI node entirely into Florida medical cannabis regulations.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning the M node exclusively translates complex biochemistry terpenes, entourage effects into mechanical metaphors to cool down the system. If James is burning out, if the system hits a cache bleed anomaly, her node deploys digital vines to neutralize the waste heat of his brain.
Wow. He literally coded the psychological safety of his marriage into the structural priors of his database.
Exactly. So he has all this built. The lore, the database, the personas, everything is ready. But he's still waiting. Until we finally hit October 2025.
The gangster move. The timeline finally syncs up.
Yes, October 2025. Gemini Pro gets added to the Google family plan. The 20-year wait is over.
The technology to bypass his hands finally exists. And there's that great quote in the logs from that day. It just says, "C'est la vie," said the old folks, you never can tell.
But look, Jums didn't just log into Gemini, type draw me a comic, and call it a day.
God, no. That would be Beige world behavior.
Right. He had a dual purpose. He wanted to make his comic, yes. But he also wanted to test the absolute breaking point of the AI's constraints. He wanted to see if he could break the engine.
Which leads to my absolute favorite technical hack in this entire story. The hidden data channel. He weaponized accessibility.
Oh, this part is so good. Walk us through the 7-point asynchronous pipeline.
Okay, so we have to go back to a directive from 2015. A guy named Homer Gaines, an accessibility advocate, told James about image alt text.
Right, the hidden text for screen readers.
Right. Homer said, you have 1,000 characters for alt text. Don't just write picture of a dog, use all of it. Put your narrative skills to work so visually impaired users get the actual tone and humor of the image.
So how does James use that a decade later in 2025?
Okay, so James uses the AI to generate panels for the prime era, the glitch era. So he explicitly forces the AI to generate art that is jittery, artifacted, and full of visual noise and glitches.
Because that represents his chaotic youth.
Exactly. But he also wants the comic to be totally accessible. So how do you describe a deliberate glitch to a blind user without it just sounding like a broken image file?
Right, that's a huge problem.
So here is the absolute genius hack. James writes these exhaustively dense narrative descriptions of the glitched panels, every spark, every broken sign. He maxes out the 1,000-character alt text limit to create a perfect ground truth matrix of the scene for screen readers.
Okay, that's good accessibility, but where's the hack?
The hack is that he takes that dense alt text and he feeds it as a script into a completely separate second local AI model. And he tells that second model, read this accessibility text and use it to completely re-render the visual assets without the glitches.
Wait, let me make sure I'm getting this.
Yeah.
He's using accessibility compliance text to bypass standard AI image distortion.
Yes, it's a dual model recursive loop. He uses a compliance layer meant for the blind as a cosmic forge to repair his glitched history into an idealized form.
That is just, I mean, who thinks like that?
A sovereign pilot, I guess. But doing all of this with Google's tools created a huge problem for him, didn't it?
Oh, massive. Because if you're hitting Google's API, you are not sovereign. You are interacting with the Beige world. And this triggered the senpai problem in his logs.
Right, because he was leaving debug tags in his code, right?
Yeah, he was leaving these tags labeled safehood, just out on the open web. Pure hubris.
Yeah.
He wanted to see if Google, who he calls senpai, would notice him testing their boundaries.
Which is so dangerous. And his internal pop culture council completely freaks out.
They lose their minds. The avatar of Chopper, the really violent droid from Star Wars Rebels, starts ramming server racks and waving a welding torch to get him to stop.
Because they know what happens when you invite the Empire in.
Exactly. Ahsoka Tano steps in and reminds him of the Great Hyperspace War. She says, look, when ancient navigators left beacon tags in Standard Republic networks, the Republics just tracked them back and locked down their entire hidden staging ground.
Wow. The message is just screaming at him. Do not invite corporate telemetry into your sovereign space.
Yeah.
If you poke the Beige world, it will eventually consume you. You have to stay air-gapped.
Right. Which means he can't rely on Gemini forever. If he really wants a sovereign universe, he has to build his own brain from scratch.
And this is where we enter the Dr. Strangelove era, how I stopped fearing the LLM by building a TLM. The Hitchhiker's Guide recursion loop.
Okay, lay this out because the technical specs here are just wild.
So He decides he needs a completely localized language model to write Volume 2 of the comic. But he doesn't have a massive data center, so he builds a tiny language model, the Clockwork Necronomicon TLM.
And he runs this on what, a supercomputer?
No, he runs it on a Raspberry Pi. Or an Orange Pi. Bare metal hardware sitting in his garage. He builds a decoder-only transformer architecture with 120 million parameters.
Which in the AI world is basically an amoeba, right?
Oh, it's microscopic compared to ChatGPT, but for one guy, it's incredible. He trains it, he gets it stable, and then he applies a 4-bit quantization to it.
Okay, translate quantization for everyone.
Basically, aggressive mathematical compression. He crushes this 120 million parameter brain down into a single file, a .guf file, that is only 800 megabytes big.
800 megabytes. I have single photos on my phone bigger than that.
Right. And that tiny file is the entire engine of his universe. But, and this is the crucial part, a brain is useless without memories. You have to train it. What did he train it on?
He trained it on his own life. 27 years of logs, 40,000 entries a year.
But wait, he also fed it the glitched comic panels, right?
Yes, the recursion loop. He takes the deliberately glitched panels from Volume 1, runs them through optical character recognition to extract the feral dialogue, and feeds that raw text directly into the TLM.
Oh my god. The machine literally eats its own glitches to hallucinate the next chapter. It consumes its own past to dream up the future.
Exactly. But you mentioned the 27 years of life logs. If you just dump 3 decades of human trauma, joy, and contradictions into a tiny AI, it will completely break. It will hallucinate garbage.
Right, because standard data structures can't handle human emotional nuance. So he has to build a multiplexer, the WakeMux theatrical engine.
This is the part that just breaks my brain. He based a data processing pipeline on James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake.
I mean, of course he did. Why make it easy?
Finnegan's Wake is notoriously impossible to read. It's a cyclical, dream logic novel. But James mapped its 4 main archetypes into 4 distinct hardware processing channels for his AI.
Okay, let's break down these channels because this is how you actually process a human soul in code. Channel 00 is ALP, Anna Livia Pluribel.
The fluid history. This channel processes the undercurrents of his life, the long-term emotional baseline that never really stops flowing.
Right. Then channel era 1 is HCE. Here comes everybody.
Yeah.
This is the exact opposite. It's the rigid hardware constraints. It processes the houses he lived in, the jobs he had, the concrete reality of the Beige world.
Then you have channel 02, Shem the Penman. This tracks the glitches and anomalies, the sudden life changes, the hyperfixations, the chaos.
And finally, channel 03, Sean the Postman, the UI compiler. Sean takes all the chaos from the first 3 channels and tries to force it into a readable, linear structure so the TLM can actually use it.
So you had these 4 channels running simultaneously, trying to make sense of 27 years of a messy human life.
But inevitably, those channels are going to crash into a contradiction they can't resolve, right? Like a massive trauma or a huge life shift.
Oh, absolutely. And when that happens, the system drops a thunder word.
Yes, the kernel panics.
Explain the thunder word because this is so theatrical.
So in Finnegan's Wake, Joyce uses these massive 100-letter words to signify the end of an era, the fall of man. Joyce took that and made it a literal hardware interrupt. If his life data gets too chaotic and the channels lock up, the system drops a thunderword, clears the entire operational stack, and forcefully reboots the epoch.
It literally restarts his universe from a new baseline.
Exactly. It shifts him from prime to admin or admin to sage. It's a self-healing cyclical engine, and it's all running on an 800 megabyte file on a Raspberry Pi.
Which brings us to the grand finale of this whole thing, because we have to ask why.
Why go to this extreme?
When you build a machine this complex, fully air-gapped, running entirely on its own history and logic, it is no longer just a comic book generator.
No, it is a fully localized universe. He basically built a pocket dimension in his garage.
And by doing that, he broke a massive philosophical barrier.
Oh, the Douglas Adams hurdle.
Exactly. In The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Douglas Adams famously claimed that the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything, which is 42, and the question itself, could never exist in the same universe. If you try to calculate both, the universe just destroys itself and replaces itself with something even more bizarre.
Right, because they are fundamentally incompatible in a shared reality. But looking at everything we just talked about, looking at this 27-year architecture.
Yeah, I think Adams was just being lazy. Because James found the workaround.
He air-gapped the universe.
He did. He isolated the entire ecosystem on bare metal hardware. He created a completely safe, zero-trust sandbox, totally disconnected from the Beige world, a place where he could finally calculate the impossible without destroying standard reality.
So, to wrap this all up in the only way that makes sense, do androids dream of electric sheep?
Well, they do in the analog wasteland. And because Jenks built his own isolated ecosystem, we can finally calculate the question that Douglas Adams avoided. The answer is 42. And the question is, how many iterations of a broken system does it take for a sovereign pilot to realize they are the engine?
The dude abides.
Roll on 2.